Welcome to Harvest Talk. Harvest Baptist Church exists to make the gospel visible in Franklin County and beyond. I'm Pastor Nathan of Harvest Baptist Church in Villa Ridge, Missouri, and I'm here today to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart. That is discipleship. We're going to answer the question of how do I find someone to disciple me? Now, before we begin, we have to define discipleship here. So I'm talking about what I would call a mentoring discipleship. This is a shared life. So it's not a class, though it could include classes, but this is something personal. It's something that is based on relationship and provides accountability. This is something that you see in the life of Jesus when he says in Mark chapter 1 to the disciples, he says, "Come ye after me, and I will make you to become fishers of men." Now that's really interesting because that's what he was doing, right? So he's saying, hey, come after me, follow me, and I'll teach you to do what it is that I'm doing. You can have a part in my ministry. You can be a part of what's going on, and I'll teach you how to do it. And he also did it in a way that was relatable to them. They could understand what it meant to fish because they were fishermen. So it was a relationship that he invited them to. I also think of Paul in 1 Corinthians 11. He says, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ." He says, hey, you can see in my life that I'm following Jesus, that I'm striving to serve him, that I'm trying to be faithful to the word. And because you can see that, then that means you can follow me. And I'll show you how to follow Christ. I'll show you what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus. So that's what I'm talking about, a relationship of discipleship that really brings you into someone's life where you learn their manner of life, where you see how they interact with their children, how they interact with their spouse, how they interact with perhaps even their coworkers or their neighbors, and you really get to see who they are. Because if you go to church and you see people in their Sunday best and we sing songs together and we hear a sermon, that is a wonderful thing. I mean, that's spectacular. It's commanded. It's necessary. But it can't stop there because we have a few hours a week together at church. And if we're going to change the world and be changed by Christ, conformed into his image, our Christian life has to be much deeper than those few hours together at the church building. So that's what I'm talking about, is having those kinds of relationships outside of maybe a formal, larger gathering, but having a one-on-one or one-on-two or one-on-three kind of relationship with someone who can show you what it looks like to follow Jesus. So the question is, how do I find someone to disciple me? Now, I've talked to people about this. People have asked me these questions, and it's something that comes up from time to time, and I wanted to try to answer that today with just a little bit of practical advice. So we know that we need to be discipled. We know that is the method that we see in the scriptures. Jesus made disciples, Paul made disciples, but what does that look like? And how can I find someone to do that in my life? So I'm going to give you three things you can do that you should do if you want to have a discipling relationship, you want someone to pour into you, to show you more of Christ and help you follow Jesus. This is what I would encourage you to do. Number one, make yourself available for discipleship. Listen, friends, if you're always working, or you're spending all of your free time with your peers, or you have time-consuming hobbies, then if you don't have anyone to disciple you, it might be you. Now, as I say that, that might be kind of surprising. Maybe you've never thought about that before. But if you say, man, I want to follow Jesus, but there's just no one to disciple me. No one's willing to invest in me. Well, have you made yourself available for discipleship, right? So we have to take some responsibility onto ourselves and say perhaps the lack of opportunities I've had for discipleship are really just because I've made myself too busy. I spend all my time at home, focused on my hobbies. I spend all my time with a few friends. I don't really give myself the opportunity in my schedule for discipleship. I'm not making that a priority. So first thing you need to do is examine just your life. What are your priorities? What is it that you spend your time on? Where is your mind throughout the week? What are you thinking about? What are you working on? It's not somebody else's fault if you're too busy to spend more time learning about Jesus and learning how to follow him. No one else can fix that for you. You're going to have to do that on your own. So if you are a young single lady or a young single man, or perhaps you're newly married, you don't have kids yet, you should consider how you can open up your schedule so that your pastor or older faithful men and women in your congregation can pour into your life because they have children, or they are working 2 jobs, or he's trying to pastor and teach this class and do that, and he's more than willing to spend time with you, but you're not available on the weekends and you're not available in the evenings. So that's something you can fix. You can take steps to make sure that you're available for discipleship. The second thing I would say is that you need to determine to follow Christ, even if you have to do it without help. Now, some people say, I need someone to disciple me, when they really mean, I'm not going to read my Bible unless someone tells me to. Or I'm not going to think about the things of God unless I'm at some kind of formal Bible study or class. They say, I need someone to disciple me. I need that in my life. And what they really mean is that they're not really that committed to Christ. They're not really going to do what it takes to study their Bible and to try to share the gospel with others, regardless of what they know. You say, I don't know a lot. Well, be faithful in the things you do know, and make sure that you are committed to Jesus, that you're going to do what you can, when you can, to follow Christ, to live for Christ, and you're not going to wait for someone else to do that for you. Ultimately, no one else can walk with Christ for you. So we need to be discipled. Certainly, we see the example of Christ and the example of Paul and many others in the New Testament that had these important discipling relationships. But that starts with a young Christian, whether young in their stage of life or young in their walk with Christ, that is going to be serious and committed to following Jesus. I mean, if you want a mature Christian to single you out for discipleship, they need to see in you a hunger for Christ. Not perfection, not the greatest level of maturity, but certainly they need to see that you have a sincere and active desire to follow Jesus. So this is something that, again, is on you. This is your responsibility. Now, this brings us to the third thing. If you do have a sincere desire to follow Christ, you're doing everything you can to grow in your faith and to serve the Lord faithfully, and you're making yourself available for discipleship, the third thing is to look for invitations to discipleship. Right? So if you're sincerely following Christ, you're making yourself available for discipleship, look around. If you're in a gospel-preaching church, there are likely people who are willing to take you under their wing, to show you more of Christ, to help you study your Bible, to help keep you accountable. But the invitation to discipleship is rarely, or almost never, hey, young man, young lady, let me disciple you. New Christian, become my disciple. That's not usually how people are going to talk about this. It usually sounds like this. Hey, let's get coffee sometime. Hey, why don't you come over to the house and have dinner with us? Hey, you should really read this book, and maybe we could get together sometime and talk about it over lunch. So don't neglect these opportunities for discipleship. Opportunities to learn from those who've been walking with Christ for longer. They're more mature in their manner of life and their manner of ministry than you've been, and they have things they can teach you. So don't neglect those opportunities for discipleship. Opportunities to learn from those who've been walking with Christ longer. They're more mature in their manner of life. They're more mature in doctrine, in ministry, and they can show you what it looks like to follow Jesus. I know my former pastor, Pastor Ryan, was really good at this. He helped me out a lot. He was busy. He has kids. He's got ministry. He's working on things. But often discipleship looked like, hey, read this book and let's get together on Saturday and we can talk about it some. Hey, I'm going to the store, or hey, I've got to go pick up pizzas. You want to ride with me? I lived a few minutes away, so I'd drive over to the church. I'd hop in the car. We'd go get pizzas. We talk on the way back, and then he takes pizzas home, and I go about my business. But we spent time together like that, and so that was discipleship. And so if you're a young Christian, or perhaps you're maybe stagnant in your walk with Christ, you say, man, I need someone to disciple me. Don't walk around saying, man, I need someone to disciple me. And someone says, hey, read this book and let's get together for coffee and talk it over. And you say, I don't need to read books. I need someone to disciple me. Don't miss these opportunities that you have in your church, perhaps in your family. Most likely the people that can help you are going to be in your church, the people you fellowship with, the people who are united around the gospel in your town or in your county, and they can help you follow Jesus. So look for those invitations. Now, with all that said, I want to extend an invitation and a caution. Here's the invitation. Our church wants to make disciples. I want to spend my life teaching others how to follow Jesus, spending time with people around the Bible, spending time with people, teaching them what it might look like to share your faith and share your testimony, or to take a missions trip, or to study the Bible and share God's word with others. By God's grace, He has put it in my heart to make disciples, and this is something I long to do. My door is always open. Our home is open. I have 2 desks in my office at the church, and if there was a young man or a different stage of life, but young in their faith and wanted to spend time with me studying the Bible, reading books about missions and discipleship and learning, my door is open. So I want to extend that invitation. But with that comes a very big caution. Make sure you aren't ignoring the invitations of discipleship already around you. If I get a Facebook message from you, you call me, and I know your pastor is willing to make disciples, and I know him, and I know he is making disciples, I'm going to tell you, go talk to your pastor. I think you missed it. So be cautious. If you're in a Bible preaching church and you've not been previously looking for these discipleship opportunities, start there. You don't need to look elsewhere and assume that going to a different church or talking to somebody else is going to radically change everything. If you yourself have not been available, you've not been prioritizing this, and you need to start where you're at. However, if you find yourself in a church that isn't faithful to the Bible, or you're in a church that's lost sight of the beauty of Christ and the necessity of discipleship, or you are out in the community and you say, hey, I've been reading my Bible, I've been thinking about the things of God, but I don't go to church, haven't been in church since I was a kid, I really need help walking with Jesus, then my door is open, the door of our church is open, and we would love to spend more time with you. Learning to walk with Christ is the most important thing you could do in your life. It's important to study the scriptures, to know more of Christ, to learn and grow in your boldness in the gospel, to share Christ with your friends and family and neighbors, and we're here to help people do that. So again, the caution, if you're in a good church that is doing this, stay there and let someone disciple you at your church. But if you don't have that, you're not in church, or your church community has lost sight of the gospel and you need help, reach out, because that's what we're here to do. And if you're not local to Franklin County, I'm sure there are churches that are willing to make disciples. They might not be putting on Facebook or putting on a podcast as I am today, hey, come to our church and let us disciple you. But they're saying, hey, let's get coffee. Hey, let's go to the park. Hey, read this book with us and meet with us on Tuesdays and we'll talk it over. Discipleship is happening. It's taking place. If you aren't being discipled and you aren't growing in your walk with Christ, that's on you. That's on you. The disciples were invited by Christ to partake in his ministry and to learn from him. They had to forsake their nets and go. Timothy and Titus and Luke spent lots of time with Paul. They had to take him up on his invitation. The invitation to discipleship is all around you. It's certainly at our church. It's at other gospel preaching churches in our county, across the state, across the nation, across the world. You can find someone to pour into your life and help you follow Christ. It starts with you, your availability, your willingness, your sincerity, and then it's going to also involve your church, a church that is excited about the gospel, that's willing to make disciples, that's full of men and women that love Jesus and want to bring people into their lives. So in conclusion, find someone to pour into your life that's a little bit further down the road, that's been walking with Christ a little longer, they've studied their Bible a little bit longer than you have, and they can show you more of what it looks like to follow Jesus. Everyone needs that. That's part of the Christian life, not just studying the Bible, but also teaching it to others, not just praying on my own, but teaching others to pray. This is what we do. This is what a life following Christ looks like. And you can be a part of that, and you ought to be a part of that. So if you're a Christian, don't let this go. Make sure that you are looking for these opportunities and finding someone to invest in your life. That will make all the difference. I know it has in mine. And I know it's been making a difference in people's lives for thousands of years. It started with Jesus, and I trust that it's going to continue to happen until Jesus comes back. So that's what I'll leave you with today. Pray about it, think about it, make yourself available for discipleship.